You know, growing up is very hard to do, and it happens throughout our life. We're always growing up, but it's difficult for any age. But I think it's especially hard during adolescence. And in today's gospel, Luke gives us the only glimpse we have of Jesus' growth of a boy into manhood. The text states he is 12 years old. I think we would agree it's an awkward age. For an adolescent feels grown up in some ways, but still immature in many others. Our gospel passage begins with Joseph and Mary making the annual 60-mile pilgrimage to Jerusalem for the feast of Passover. But on their return home, the most frightening thing a parent can imagine happens. They lose their child. In this case, a kind of Home Alone in reverse, as Jesus wasn't left in the comfort of his home, but in the big city of Jerusalem. And only a parent would know the horror, the fear, and the panic of that situation. I can imagine Joseph and Mary saying to one another, "I thought he was with you." "No, I thought you had him." It's the kind of disaster that families would talk about for years. And a modern version of this story would probably include a 24/7 Amber Alert and a likely visit from social services as to, how did you lose your 12-year-old kid? And as the media frenzy escalates, come the inevitable questions. How did Mary and Joseph allow this to happen? Why didn't they make sure someone was with him? Why did it take a day for them to realize he was missing? Now, before we label Mary and Joseph bad parents, most of these questions can be answered in the context of the Mediterranean culture of the time. The primary mode for transportation then was walking. The folks from Nazareth traveled on foot in a caravan. The men would travel in a group separate from the women and young children. Jesus, being 12, could have been in either group. And at night, the families would be reunited for sleep, and that's probably when the discovery was made and why a day passed without realizing that Jesus was left behind. But our story today is not concerned with answering these types of questions. Luke's account today is really meant for us living today, and we need to see it through the viewpoint of what we are celebrating today, which is the Feast of the Holy Family. Now, we all come from families, all types, all sizes, all backgrounds. Many are broken and scarred. Although there's much love and nurturing in the family, we all have our struggles and issues. But I dare say for many of us, the words Holy Family sound like an oxymoron. It's difficult to relate to. Well, that's not my family. We have kind of a grade school image of the Holy Family, like we would see in a prayer card. They're otherworldly. Well, they look very free from any worry. They must be living in perfect harmony. It's unattainable for my family. Well, the difference between the Holy Family and our family is just the word holy. And holy doesn't mean being perfect. It's a virtue where we do all things for God. It's where we put God first in our lives. And we're called to holiness. And we can attain it if we do one thing. And in a word, obedience. Now for us today, that's a very hard word to swallow, obedience. But not so for the Holy Family. When Joseph found Mary being pregnant, he decided to divorce her quietly. But the angel of the Lord told him to not be afraid. Take Mary as your wife. Joseph didn't do it his way. He was obedient. When the angel Gabriel appeared to Mary and announced God's will for her, Mary didn't bat an eye. She said, "I am the handmaid of the Lord. May it be done to me according to your word." Mary was obedient. Soon after Jesus' birth, Joseph had a dream. The angel of the Lord asked him to lead the Holy Family to Egypt to escape the slaughter of the holy innocents by King Herod. Joseph was obedient. Mary and Joseph made sure that Jesus was raised in the religious tradition of Israel. That's why they made this annual pilgrimage to Jerusalem. Mary and Joseph were obedient. And when Mary and Joseph found Jesus in the temple, they didn't find him holding sway over his teachers. He was sitting and listening. You see, the Latin root for the word obedience means to listen. Jesus was listening. Jesus was obedient. And when Mary gently rebuked him, we hear the very first spoken words of Jesus in Scripture. "Did you not know that I must be in my Father's house?" Jesus had grown up. He knew now he wasn't just the Son of Mary, but the Son of God. And he had discovered his divine mission to do the will of his Father. Jesus was obedient. And even though Mary and Joseph had no idea what he was talking about, Jesus was obedient to their wishes and returned home with them to Nazareth. So yes, the Holy Family was made up of holy, saintly, and even divine persons, but that didn't spare them from the hardships and difficulties of life. But it was their obedience to the will of God that kept them together and helped them to resolve the awkward and difficult situations in which they encountered. So the question for us tonight is, how can the Holy Family be a model for our families today? Well, first we need to continue to grow up, all of us, just like the boy Jesus did. We need to see that obedience is putting others before ourselves. We need to see that obedience is less about following orders, and it's more about loving God first, doing His will, so we can better love others in our family. My brothers and sisters, as we grow closer to the new year, perhaps we should reflect on how the 12-year-old Jesus gives us a New Year resolution to strive for. That we strive for more holiness in our families by centering our family life around doing the Father's business, by being obedient in honoring God and honoring one another in our family. And as we grow in holiness, we can look to Jesus, Mary, and Joseph as a model of faith and courage and trust and love.